Hey guys, this is Morgan. Before we get started with the episode, a funny thing happened. We definitely talked about the whole Proxygate situation that occurred this week, and of course Wizards has since then released a clarifying statement on the whole situation. So some of what we might say may not make very much sense at this point in time, but at the time we talked about it, it made a whole lot of sense. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up about that, so you could even, maybe even skip over that part if you really don't want to hear about it, since a lot of things have been cleared up. But just wanted to give you guys a forewarning about that. But without further ado, please enjoy the show. The At Your Insta podcast is brought to you by Comictown. Check them out at www.comictown.net or search for Comictown Gaming Center on Facebook.
Hello, and welcome to At Your Instep. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hey, what's up?
And Dave.
Hi.
And Brian.
Hey, guys.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you guys. We have the Oath of the Gatewatch-Palooza! And I have to remember to edit the sweet sound effects onto that.
If the guy sitting around me could have done the echo for me, that would have been insane.
No, it's far better when I add the effects.
It has to be artificial.
Yeah.
It has to be artificial.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But
just like waste mana?
Is that right?
Count it. Yeah, it's created. So it's either just created by Kozilek, or it's like how earthworms move through the earth and they eat the dirt and they poop out the little ringlets. This is Kozilek's poop.
Oh.
So it's called waste.
That makes it less cool. Anyway, but we do have some community stuff to touch on, as well as the competitive things that happened over the weekend. So we'll work through those briefly and then move into the meat of the show, which is going to be the set review. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go into the community stuff. So over the weekend, or this week, basically, Wizards has kind of shifted their stance on proxies used for unsanctioned events held in WPN or Wizards Premier, Wizards Play Network, Wizards Play Network stores. Basically saying that if you are, holding these unsanctioned proxy tournaments, we would politely ask you not to. If you do not, we have the ability to remove your WPN status from your store. Now, I know in our local area, there have been many of these tournaments due to some, legacy enthusiasts being local or close to our area. And so this is a common thing for us to see. And
we had vintage locally, too.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. So now that this has kind of, come down, we probably will not see very many of those, if any at all, of those tournaments happening, due to people being afraid of losing their WPN status. Now, I do know that Helene Bergeau did say that this was mainly targeted at stores that were profiting from these events. So if you have a, Cube group that goes there and just, plays Cube, obviously, if the store is not profiting from your event, then it would not be something that you would necessarily have to worry about, per the words of Helene Bergeau on Twitter. So take that with whatever, gravitas you take that with. But
I think it's important to note that this is a new policy. This is the policy and has been the policy. It was sparked because one store had asked a question about it, and they got a response, and then they sort of messaged it out. And I was telling these guys about, on Reddit, somebody mentions how, if you keep asking them for further response, all you're going to get is policy quoted back to you over and over again. So that's what you're going to get. I mean, while it's not worded very well, and some of their backtracking has been awkward, comparing things to like somehow suggesting we're trying to protect against counterfeiting. It's well, what? This is obviously not that. And obviously Wizards also has caught themselves in a weird sort of conundrum where just a few days ago they were actually hey, you should go watch these Versus videos on Star City about, these. Oh wait, they proxied a bunch of Oath cards. Oops. And then somebody dug up an article from 2 years ago where they were hey, you should convince your store to run proxy vintage events. It's awkward. But at the end of the day, especially if a store is profiting off of the game, but not actively trying to sell the game or actively engage players with a part of the game that they can buy things from. I can understand Wizards' like idea, like, hey, you never have to buy cards. You can come play the game. We'll make money and you'll make money. This is a win-win. And Wizards is like, I don't think that's how we designed this. And like, you could say that sounds greedy, but they're a company owned by a larger company. It's money.
Yeah, it's definitely something that a lot of people have had some sort of, vitriol response about. Trick Jarrett seems to be, his response to the situation seems to have spurned a lot of that on, where he was saying that a proxy is... He basically spelled out what the legal definition of a proxy is, which is a card that a judge uses to replace a damaged card in a tournament, and anything else is considered a counterfeit. So, by his logic, when you Sharpie cards to represent other cards, those are counterfeit cards that you have created.
Now, granted, I don't think, Morgan, you were ever around for this, but I think, did you mention the gold cards? Like, didn't they used to print decks of these?
Yeah, the World Championship decks.
Right, but not tournament legal, so...
Yeah, but a proxy...
I guess if you use it as a counterfeit, then if you went to a counterfeit tournament...
They've had multiple instances of stuff like that. Like, this is weird. I don't know. Hey, artist proofs are cool to look at, but if you ever use them in your EDH deck when you're playing with friends, you've now turned it into a counterfeit. I know that's weird, but you've totally done that and have broken the law. So if you would stop doing that kindly, please. Like, what?
Yeah, if they're going to equate proxies to counterfeits, then yeah, what about the World Championship cards? What about the collector's edition cards that Wizards printed? Wizards printed these cards, so they're not counterfeit, quote unquote. They're not legal for tournament play, but
yeah,
they're not.
So if we found all the 9th edition box toppers and made a deck out of it and tried to play that, is that a counterfeit deck?
Oversized commanders?
Yes.
I think someone even said that in the rules, you couldn't even possibly sanction an event that had uncards involved in it either, which is really interesting. This might not even have anything to do with what's going on, but it's if you go by what the rules say, then it's really hard to do anything but just pure magic, whatever, however you want to look at that. So it's very interesting, and it's Wizards, I feel has over the past couple of months have made some missteps as far as how their company is represented, and it really hurts because they don't necessarily have a PR team or a strong person that really handles their messaging, and you just have a bunch of people that it's not necessarily their job to be that front-facing person that is handling all these things that are going on, and it's kind of led to some snafus.
I will say, there's been a bunch of people suggesting that Star City pushed for this because people weren't buying Eternal staples, or they really want people to play Vintage on Moto, so this is why they would don't do this. Please.
Yeah, I really hope people that suggest that are just joking.
Yeah,
it's a funny joke, but
there were people who Reddit had it, and there was a couple other. It was just that wouldn't surprise me if Star City's doing that. I'm like, what? That's not how this works. You could argue that it's in the best interest of every vendor to stop proxy events, right? Isn't the best hey, all of you people that sell Magic for us, I'm sorry that this is causing people to not buy your other singles. Maybe we should help you, but no, it's only Star City. That's how that works. So I don't know. It's awkward. I don't think this is going to change much outside of the people actually running events rather than be sanctioned or unsanctioned. So
yeah, it does put it in an awkward space because a lot of those events are what ran the Vintage community a lot. So not having access to those tournaments, especially people that want to have a somewhat competitive scene structured around, Vintage, less so for Legacy, but, for Vintage, that definitely lessens your opportunities to do so, which is unfortunate. Those are a segment of people that enjoy Magic, and it's also a segment of people that go into their local stores for various reasons, that being one of them, and if that's not a reason to go into your store anymore, you may not be going to that store at all.
Yeah, I've never been a vintage guy. I've never really got into vintage, but obviously over the years they've kind of lessened their support for vintage, kind of more and more. And I feel like this is almost like the final nail in the coffin for that format.
Yeah, it's
outside of Magic Online.
Yeah, so. It's just I don't know. It's weird. It doesn't those proxy tournaments. I do not know how they are. I don't know how they're necessarily impacting Wizards in a way that is meaningful. So you can theorize that they're going to make the argument that if you can't play Vintage, maybe you should look into potentially like playing something like Modern. But I don't see that. I don't see Vintage players wanting to do that.
Not the
Like,
same thing.
it's like, why would I want to go play this watered down format that is not powerful when I'm playing the most powerful format that you can possibly play in Magic, besides maybe something casual, but the most powerful like 75 card format available to me. So they're not gonna. You're just segmenting in a group, a portion of your audience that you're basically saying, well, maybe we don't want you anymore, and that's unfortunate. And I don't think it's a wise business move. You shouldn't segment any part of your audience if you don't have to, because I don't think the people that you're alienating are going to be buying your packs. Like, it's just not going to happen.
They probably haven't in a very long time, and they're probably fine just going and sitting and playing Vintage where they were playing before. But
yeah,
I do think it is interesting that like they, not to beat this too much, but Wizards is calling these cards counterfeits, but like, isn't a counterfeit like specifically supposed to be able to be passed as the original object, right? Like if you're counterfeiting something, you're trying to trick people,
right?
So when I write down Black Lotus on the back of a basic forest, like unless I'm like telling some kid, no, don't worry, this is a real Black Lotus. Don't worry that the art doesn't match, or that the name is on the wrong side of the card. Like unless I'm like that guy with like a toothpick in my mouth, like flipping a quarter, like, hey kid.
Are you the guy that ties the string around a washer and like puts it in the Coke machine and then yanks it out so you can get a free Coke?
The best part about that is that the Morgan's up there in a leather jacket still being the toady. It's the best. It's
Yeah.
Like, hey, you should buy this Black Lotus, right, Morgan?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good deal. It's a good deal, kid. That's the rarest card in Magic. It's so early, they didn't even print the right art on it. And they had to handwrite it. So rare. So early.
This is actually one of the playtest cards.
Yeah, it's very, very primitive. All right. Anyway, don't do that
Can I
to anyone.
choose some White Lotuses?
It gives you 4 mana when you crack it. Anyway, let's move on to another scenario, another drama fueled incident that happened a few weeks ago. But Wizards has decided to lift the ban on 10 of the 12 people that were banned for 3 months in regards to the Kozilek waste leak. I believe it's just the 3-monthers that they're referencing. So these are the judges, assumedly, that were banned for 3 months for being a part of the group. And this is something that they do. They have a appeals process that you can go through and provide additional information. So they went through that appeals process. But the article they release is fairly transparent. Comparatively to anything else that we've gotten. So a lot of us were joking if this was actually, given to us by Wizards.
An early April Fool's article.
yeah. It's just ghost written by someone. But, so that's good news for that, especially that area, where they are lacking judges and so that they can continue having their PPTQ season go hopefully uninterrupted if stores even want to run those events.
Yes. In the note, you said 10 of the 12 have had their suspension released. The other 2 just haven't filed an appeal yet.
Oh.
So it's likely that those 2, if they filed an appeal, would have.
Wow. They're just so lazy. They're like, whatever.
I do.
They were just so not a part of that group, they don't even know they're banned yet.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note, too, and again, you said transparency, which is nice. It says very distinctly at the end of the article that, like, I want you to understand that, like, once this becomes, like, a legal issue, like a leak, meaning that we have an employee like, giving internal information away that's getting out, when our legal team is involved, that isn't just, like, the player relations. That's not the DCI. You know what I mean? That's not. So it's like, when you're like, hey, be transparent about this, like, hey, our lawyers in a different department said we can't. And I kind of, it's a nice answer. You know what I mean? Like, we would give you more information if we were allowed to tell you about it, but we aren't controlling this.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. And
Yeah.
honestly, something they could have said literally day one.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they'll learn from that. But
yeah, per our legal consultation, we cannot say any more about this event. And then we would have been like, okay, that makes sense.
And then we could await this, we'd be like, well, we're awaiting this information. So I think it's also nice to point out that it's written here distinctly that like things like that we do when we talk about things after they're made public, they're not going to crack down on those people. They're like we're not worried about the people who are sharing public information, like we're worried about the people who are like, oh, I have this like interesting information. They also said that they're going to start making very specific scheduled release dates for things known well in advance, so that if because one of the arguments these judges had was like, this card looked, waste looked ridiculous, and I can agree with that. We were all like, what does this look like? So they had plausible like deniability in the fact that they thought these were fake cards, right? So they're like, well, you will have much more of like a bigger indication. Like, hey, does this card come out before we've started talking about spoilers for this? Maybe you should ask first. So they'll have somewhere to check that against, like, at least reasonably.
No, I mean, those are good steps to take. So that's pretty much it for our community topics. Let's go ahead and move on to what happened over the weekend competitively. So we had GP Oakland, which was standard, had a total of 1,928 players, which is pretty awesome. And it was taken down by none other than Reed Duke, my personal hero. His hair was magnificent as always. I believe that it guided him to his victory against his Hall of Famer opponent, Ben Rubin, playing a 64-card main deck and of Abzan Blue. Playing for he was playing some number of stubborn denials. Was it the full four?
Yeah, you got to fit those stubborn denials in somehow.
And you don't have to take anything out apparently.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I want to make cuts to the deck, and stubborn and I was like, nah. Like, can I please make cuts? And it's like, read the card.
I'm pretty stubborn. You're not gonna win.
I'm denying this.
He's playing some absurd number of lands too. He's playing like 29 lands or something.
Well, when you have a 64 card deck, you got to do that.
Yeah, he was.
You're probably trying to do the ratio. Like, man, this isn't gonna work out. I got to add more lands.
Yeah, 29 lands.
Wow. Well, hey, I'm not in the Hall of Fame, so more power to Ben Rubin for doing that.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, though, his deck was pretty sweet, and it was a good call for the tournament, being well set up for the Abzan mirrors, which were pretty prevalent.
I really don't know who I'm more impressed with. Like that last, I didn't watch a lot of GP Oakland, and honestly, I wasn't very excited about the coverage. But once you got to top 8, they had some pretty sweet commentators, and
yeah, I mean, especially that last round though. I mean, that last match, I should say.
Well, I felt like it was a bad matchup in general for Reed. Just like there were a lot of like cards that were really good in the main. Like he had counter magic for like the big spells. He had Anafenza, which is a big bane for that deck. And you saw game 1 him, Ruben really putting the screws to, and Reed still almost got out of the game 1. So I was like, man. So I was like, wow. So not only is like Ruben playing this like 64 card deck monstrosity and just like playing well, but like Reed Duke navigating those games was disgusting. It was so good. It was like, I am not that good, and I will never be that good.
Yeah, you mentioned game 1. He got the ultimate of Jace.
Yeah,
like he found
for the
line.
mill plan because his graveyard was shut off because of Anafenza like the whole game. So
like, he found the line and like he didn't get there, but it was just like he was at 6, I think, for like 4 or 5 turns. Every time I kept like looking back at, I'm like, how is he not? How is it still the same game? Like,
yeah, it was pretty insane. That game 1 was definitely a game to watch for sure because it's like, oh, Reed Duke should just be dead, but he just wasn't for the longest time.
You could hear like Ruben go like, die.
Yeah. I know that a lot of the Channel Fireball guys are pretty excited because it's Team Pantheon that were represented. I know Owen Turnwall was pretty excited. Huey Jensen, who was in the booth, was obviously jazzed for his BFF. And it was definitely, probably good, advertising for Channel Fireball for sure. Both of them were wearing CFB shirts on the CFB stream. It's like, root Channel Fireball, become Reed Duke or Ben Rubin.
Become Reed Duke.
We also want to give a shout out to Josh McClain, who also made top 8, playing 4-color rally as well. Congrats to him.
Yeah,
also a Channel Fireballer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, this standard format is basically done now.
Yeah, it's old hat. We're not going to talk about deck lists. Whatever. Like, you have, 2 FNM, 1 FNM to do?
I got confused on the number of Fridays we're left before this weekend.
Yeah, whatever.
I will say it's pretty interesting that the rally deck, I think, was clearly the best deck here. We had 3 in the top 8. I thought it was the best deck going into the tournament. And it's kind of funny how we kind of started at the beginning of this standard format when Battle for Zendikar first came out. We had Matthew Tickle kind of broke through with his rally deck, and he ended up winning the standard classic over at Star City again with the same deck. And so this is kind of where we've ended now. Who knows if this deck's going to be good going forward? We don't really know that the format's going to change, but
there was that time in the middle of the season 2 when that European GP had like 4 rally decks in the top 8.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that I kind of feel like it was like underrated for a long time, and I think now it's finally getting like the respect. I mean, there were certain players that would swear by it. I know Li Tian played it for a long time and did really well with it. But yeah, so that's a deck that is probably the best deck in Standard right now. But we'll see how that gets impacted by it.
Yeah, definitely some exile effects re-entering Standard, which may make a difference. But deck's still powerful. So
Yeah, and the other list that I saw a lot at the GP was the Black Red Dragons list, which has kind of been picking up steam ever since the last Pro Tour, I feel like. So,
Dragons are good.
Yeah.
I like Dragons.
Yeah,
they're good.
I played that deck for an FNM. Did pretty well with it. Won that FNM. It's pretty awesome.
How many FNMs do you win that week?
I just one because there's only one FNM that I can go to.
Not if you're Kozilek. There's like as many FNMs as you want.
Infinite FNMs. So yeah, that was the standard GP. Next up, we have the Open that was in Charlotte, and it was modern. It had a total of 815 players, and it was won by Brian Huffman playing Jund, who beat Bob Huang, who is playing the Grizzlebrand Reanimator deck.
His patented deck.
Yeah,
He invented.
yeah, pretty much. And it was, I mean, that deck is, again, a deck that is kind of like Bloom, but less, I feel, resilient or...
Less consistent.
Less consistent, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. That it has the potentiality of killing turn 2, but does not necessarily do it. And it takes someone of the skill of someone who made the deck to, potentially do as well as to, or arrive at the finals of a tournament, I would imagine. But it's definitely a deck that kind of abuses the rule, the fourth turn or the third turn rule a lot of the time.
Yeah, he definitely he added blue to the list, which I believe before it was just a straight black-red
Yeah.
list. So he added blue for a little bit more consistency, playing Serum Visions and Is It Charm, things like that. To kind of, I'm imagining just to smooth out the draws a little bit.
Yeah, Is It Charm is probably pretty insane in a deck that wants to abuse the graveyard a little bit.
Yeah.
We also want to note that Jeff Hooglin and Todd Stevens with the back and back from Charlotte, from Cincy to Charlotte. Hooglin playing Kiki Cord and Todd Stevens still playing Naya Company.
Hooglin again getting in on breakers in 8th, just like he did in Cincinnati.
Just sneaking in there, man.
Sneaking in.
Yeah, he had an awkward thing too, where he had a sleeve issue and got a game loss in his match in the top 8, and then died. He said on turn 3.
Yeah,
in his one game.
that's rough. And had some pretty negative things to say about his sleeve company he used.
I mean, I'm very. I was Legion,
Yeah.
and Legion sleeves are consistently subpar. To be quite honest, I will say though, I did feel for him because like when I top 8'd in Columbus, I had a judge approach me about my sleeves, and they were KMCs, but there was they come in packs of 40, and one of the packs of 40 had like etching on it, so you could like set aside 2 sets of cards, and unfortunately, the way I had shuffled my cards, a large number of my lands were in the one set. Now they gave me a warning and let me re-sleeve, so it was kind of awkward. Like if he had no other warnings, like it's a game loss, and it's like that seems odd. Like I don't understand why you would jump straight there, but
Did he appeal?
I'm assuming yes. Knowing Jeff, I would say definitively yes. But I don't know if it must have been fairly egregious. But for not being able to use the same sleeves for a whole tournament, that's really awkward. And that was the only awkward thing in the top 8, right?
No.
Oh yeah.
There's another match against Bob Huang, actually.
Yeah.
The semifinals.
Yeah, this is a reason why you should know the names of cards, I guess, theoretically, or not get scummed by your opponent potentially. Like there's a lot of conjecture with this situation, so we'll explain it for you.
This is like a very unique case that like I don't know can be duplicated.
Yeah. So this is a card called Pithing Needle, or Pithing Needle, some say. I don't know. And it comes into play. You name a card, you can't activate abilities of the card when you name that card. And there's this card called Borborygmos, and it turns out there's actually Borborygmos, but there's also a card named Borborygmos in Rage. So Bob Huang's opponent played Pithing Needle, and depending on who you ask, I'm sure either it resolved in Bob Huang's opponent named Borborygmos, or he said Borborygmos, the one in your deck, because that makes sense. So ends up where Borborygmos gets cast and Bob Huang tries to use it. Assumedly, I didn't see the actual event that happened, but judge gets called over. Bob Huang's opponent's like, "Hey, I named Borborygmos assumedly he said the whole name of the card." At that point in time, and then Bob Huang's like, "You said Borborygmos," and since that's a legal card in Magic, the judge had determined that Borborygmos was named, and not Borborygmos Enraged. I can't stand saying that card's name so many times.
Bobo.
Bobo,
Big
yeah.
Bobo.
Yeah. Angry Bobo was not named. Regular Bobo was named. And as that is the case, Bob Huang ended up winning that match.
Now, he did ask the judge before, so he kind of knew that he was going to take that line, and he did step away from the table for a minute, and asked the judge, so he kind of cleared it before doing it. I would feel bad winning that way, but when you're in the top 8, I mean, and it's competitive, rules enforcement.
The only thing is where it's awkward is that they have their I
have the deck
I feel like it's scummy. I'll be very honest. I feel like it is. But in your opponent's side, you had a deck list. You'd seen the card multiple times. To not be able to remember the word enraged, I'm sorry. Pithing Needle distinctly says name a card. You can't look at Moto. You can't go on Moto and say, I don't know, that one he's playing.
Right, but he doesn't have the deck list at the time of casting Pithing Needle.
But you're playing it's like Cabal Therapy and being like, I don't know.
Yeah, but he could have just scanned through his opponent's deck list, didn't read every card.
But you can call a judge and you can ask for the name of a card as long as you can describe it effectively. He could have played a very safe line, and he didn't.
Yeah, but if you start campaigning for that, then every time somebody casts the Pithing Needle, it's like, I need a judge. Yep. I need a judge to help hold my hand.
Doesn't this situation argue that he should, though? He lost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for it.
Yeah, but back in
hire 100 more judges.
Back in the old days, you actually had to know the exact name of the card, and you couldn't ask a judge for things like that. Now, like you said, Mike, you could be like, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's like a 7/6 trample, and you could discard lands to deal damage. Can you tell me what that is?
Or something.
Right. But yeah, it's just awkward in this case because the card that he named just happened to have another card with only the first name in it that he said.
I mean, there's a couple ways this can happen, though. It can happen in Standard right now. I mean, you could effectively say Gideon. Now, granted, Kithian is the front face of that card, but there are 2 cards legally named Gideon in the format now. So if you just name Gideon, your opponent will be like, oh, LOL, well, I don't know which one you meant. I'm assuming you meant this one, right? So you have to now Flip Gideon might get there, right? But it does depend on when. There's conjecture that he said Borborygmos in your deck when it resolved, or later.
We don't really know.
If he said that the first time, though, I would tend to be on the side of, now Huang isn't just corner angle shooting. He's literally cheating. But I'm sorry, Keller. If you think it's going to make the tournament go longer, I'm going to make it go longer by making sure I don't get scummed.
Yeah, I think that's the important part is hey, do your best to potentially do what you can to make sure that you don't have a feel bad in your tournament experience.
Yeah, I mean, I come from Dave's era, so I name the card all the way through the complete and exact title every time.
Yeah, I mean, that is a skill check for Pithing Needle, theoretically. If you're going to play that card, then you should know names of cards for sure, 100%, if you don't want to die to them. And the Pithing Needle is a really good card against Bob Huang's deck because you can name, Grizzlebrand, or you can name Borborygmos Enraged.
Yeah, he had one name in Grizzlebrand already.
Yeah.
So, so that one is awkward because technically, if you just name Grizzlebrand, then it works the way you want it to, even though there's 2 Grizzlebrands in the format, right? Because the other one, no, it's not Grizzlebrand. Yeah, it's Grizzlebrand, right? There's 2 Grizzlebrands that exist, right?
Not 2 creatures.
Who am I thinking of? What's the other black?
You're thinking of Obnixilis.
Oh, it's Obnixilis.
There's 2
I apologize.
Obnixilis.
My apologies.
There's technically 3 or 4 Obnixilises right now, right?
That's true.
That all could be named after Pithing Needle. 2 more Planeswalkers. It's great. Anyway, so that was the other controversy that happened over the weekend, which people have been talking about a little bit. It's died down a little bit, but whatever. we also do want to note that Harlan Fear and then Joshua Cho were also in the top 8. There were notable names. Fear was playing Blue Red Twins, similar to BBD's list from the previous weekend, and then Josh Cho playing White Black Tokens.
Fear's list was a little different than BBD's list. He had some weird stuff going on. Like
do you know what the word
House.
similar means, Dave? It means that it has some cards that are in there.
It was different enough.
Oh, okay, all right. So similar too, but still has some differences. All right, that's fine. No, that's fine, Dave. You're right. I misspoke.
Even I think this is like just pure semantics.
Whatever. Let's move on.
All right.
Can I mention one deck before we move on?
No.
Why not?
All right.
I want to mention the Heartless Eldrazi deck because that's a picket of steam on online as well.
The next step.
Yeah, the next step. So it's definitely like the black-white Eldrazi deck, or this is just mono black. My apologies. And it's playing for Heartless Summoning, so it makes things cost super cheap. Like with you play Kozilek's Channeler, Conduit of Ruin, and 4 Ulamogs, plus you have Eldrazi Temples and Eye of Ugins, so that all these things stack. So if you go like Eye of Ugin into like, and then like you play your Heartless Summoning, and then you play like your Kozilek's Channelers for free, or for a mana, and then your Conduit of Ruin comes in, and you can play like your Ugin with like, or with your Ulamog with like 2 lands in play. Like, it's like, what? I don't understand what's happening. So like, yeah, the deck was interesting. Like all these Eldrazi decks, like I built the black-white one. Like it does some cool things. It also does nothing sometimes. And I can't imagine like the times you have like more than one Heartless Summoning when you're trying to play this deck against anything unfair. You're like, all right, Heartless Summoning, go. It's like, you're dead? All right, cool, good games. Back it in.
You figured it out. Congratulations.
Solved the Heartless Summoning puzzle.
You solved my Heartless Summoning puzzle. I should not be playing this card. Good day.
But the hands where you like play Ulamog on turn 3 or 2, 3, or 4, and your opponent's like, I'm
dead.
I don't like any of this.
I don't know. It's something to note of, especially when we like are talking about some of these cards and some of the interesting things you can do if you make these cards cheaper. So maybe, who knows? Modern's a crazy place.
Yeah, this deck kind of gets a shot in the arm with the new set, so
yeah,
we'll talk about some of those cards.
For sure. I mean, and really, what better time than now to move into the Oath of the Gatewatch extravaganza palooza, if you will.
Don't call it anything else. It's a palooza.
Okay, it's a palooza. I'm sorry.
Jeez.
I just want to say extravaganza.
I don't care. Call something else an extravaganza. Call it the Morgan Sadness extravaganza.
that seems counterintuitive, though,
well,
right?
I'm upset at you for... I wanted to say a word that you don't want me to say.
An extravaganza of sadness. What would that be like?
Now I'm actually questioning my head if the word I was going to say is actually a curse or not.
Well, how about we err on the side of caution and say no? Say don't say that. All right. So we're going to go through by color, technically. So it'll be white, blue, black, red, green, gold, and then we're going to do the colorless cards, which there are obviously a lot of. Some of, I guess not a terrible amount. And then lands. So let's go ahead and start with white. Is everyone okay with that? Are we going to do the switch off between you guys?
Indeed.
All right. As long as you can handle it this time.
Can I read cards too?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
let's make it even more complicated.
Let's add another
Dave will
person to
never keep
this. All right. So yeah, you guys can figure this out. I guess I will just sit back and watch the train wreck occur. So whoever wants to start may start.
I mean, I guess I can start then. So I guess we're beginning here with Eldrazi Displacer, right? So this is a creature Eldrazi that costs a white and 2 colorless.
Too generic.
Not doing this.
All right. Your funeral. I don't know what to tell you.
I'll make it worse. I don't care.
Waste white?
What? It's the Void.
Understand.
It's a 3/3 and has the ability 2 colorless, 1 Eldrazi, 1 wastes, 1
Wingding.
Kozilek
What?
mana.
One wingding.
Colorless.
I don't understand. We cannot use generic and then colorless.
2 colorless and a colorless.
Okay, cool. Whatever. 2 generic and a waste mana. That's what I'm going to say. I'm just going to make everyone mad. Exile another target creature, and then return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So, interesting here. It's important to note this is not a tap ability, so it can use it the turn it's cast. It can be used multiple times in a turn. So we get some really sweet flicker shenanigans. Whenever I see a 3-drop that has like flicker stuff on it, like I get all like warm and fuzzy and have fond memories of Astral Slide. Now, this is no Astral Slide, but it is an engine by itself in a format with a lot of really interesting, like, enters the battlefield triggers hanging around.
Is there a 4/5 that likes to enter the battlefield?
And Lightning Helix your opponents?
Lightning Helix your opponents?
Yeah, I think that card exists.
Yeah.
I think there's also one that likes to exile cards from your opponent's hand.
Huh.
That's kind of interesting. Heck, there's one that lets you just gain 3 life for like 2 mana, so that one's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of cool triggers in this format that we can do sweet things with. This card is obviously powerful. Now you're looking at a 3/3 for 3, which trained Armadons are never exactly what we're trying to play in constructed formats.
Not at least not anymore.
Unless you're Mike Flores.
Well, I mean,
I've never been happier to say I'm not.
this card could easily have been in any other set, like a 2/3.
Right.
I think just having that colorless mana symbol let them bump the power and toughness up a little bit.
And sure, and what's nice about this too is in most decks, if you're playing like white with a large number of colors only producing mana, you know what I mean, then you don't actually have to have that in play when you cast this. Like you can just hope to turn that on later, which is kind of nice. So there's some flexibility with that. So the card's really powerful. The whole like dies of Doomblade argument is whatever, but this dies through every piece of removal. Like, outside of Wild Slash, so...
And it's not just about blinking your guys. You can exile their creatures just to tap them. So if you just activate this twice, get rid of 2 blockers, that might be enough to kill them, too.
Yeah, interesting. I mentioned I've been playing with Clutch of the Currents on the beta, and I had my Awakened Land blinked, and I was like, oh, well, that was not cool. You put him back to sleep. He's like...
Along those same lines, you can blink your opponent's Hangerback Walker as well. It's a 0/0. Cool. I don't know. It's kind of cool.
No, it's definitely a thing. So I don't know, and I know there are a couple of lists already, people trying to brew with this. I haven't seen anything too exciting yet. Like, I don't know if you can successfully build a deck that this is the focal point of. Like, all you want to do is this, but just putting in a Siege Rhino deck for value is nice. Now, it should be important to note there is an infinite combo in Standard with this card.
Oh, go ahead.
Whoa.
It's Zulaport Cutthroat, this card, and Brood Monitor. It's the 6 mana green. It makes 3 spawn tokens, so you can sack those to get 3 triggers to flicker the Brood Monitor to get 3 more things. It is an infinite combo that goes off with this in a deck that can go in a shell that's already technically playable. So there is something broken you can do with it if you really want to, but I don't know if that's the way to build this card.
I wouldn't say Brood Monitor is playable, but
it's 6 mana for 6 power. Titans are 6 mana for 6 power.
4 bodies.
You're right.
Come on.
It's the same as Primeval Titan. I forgot.
You do get 3 mana out of it too if you want.
Oh, man.
That's pretty funny, though. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
You got the next one.
Next one. Oh, man, this is a sweet card. Not. Call of the Gatewatch is a sorcery that costs a white and 2 generic. Search your library for a Planeswalker card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle your library. Casual Paradise. No, I don't know. I don't think this card is constructed playable, but it's kind of cool. We've seen a couple of these specialty tutors in the last couple of blocks. We had the one...
Sarkin's Victory or Sarkin?
Yeah, Sarkin searches for a dragon. It is happy, rides off into the sunset.
Do you think this goes into any... like Super Friends style deck?
No, I don't think so.
I think any Super Friends style deck like just wants to draw cards. Like would rather play any 3 mana draw spell over this. I mean, you have like another Oath, an Oath of Jace. Yeah, like an Oath of Jace that I think you'd play instead. That is a bigger benefit for playing Planeswalkers. So I think this card, like this, screams like EDH to me, right? Like the deck that has like there's definitely an EDH deck that plays every Planeswalker. So it's like, you know what? I just want to go for whatever one I want. But
I mean, like maybe there's like some corner case scenario in Standard when if you're playing like one Ugin or something and you really want to search for it. But I don't see it.
You're playing like Ugin and like Gideon's and like an Omnixilus or something.
Like a Chandra or something.
Maybe that's what you want, but I don't know. I doubt it. Like you're wasting a whole turn doing it. Like more than likely early in the game. Like in this format, are there enough decks that you can afford to just be like, all right, I'm just gonna have 6 for a turn to draw a card.
The problem is it's too narrow. Like if it costs like 1 mana or something like that, maybe, because then you'd be able to just cast it and then cast the card that you're actually getting. Right. But yeah, like you said, it's just.
Or maybe if like there was a Liliana the Veil or a Jace the Mind Sculptor in the format that was something so powerful that it made this card worth it. But I don't think any walkers in this format are that powerful. So.
I mean, I wouldn't have played this in blue-white control back when Jace was legal in Standard. So
I'm trying to get a scenario where like the art suite.
I might play it. Just go get a Jace Mind Sculptor.
I mean, it curves out pretty sweet to Jace. So,
And you get to shuffle after you've Squadron Hawked. This card might be good enough for that. Go get a Gideon after you have a Jace. You put cards on top. You get to shuffle. Yeah, I'm playing one of these.
All right.
Our next card, Immolating Glare. White, generic, for an instant, destroy target attacking creature. I think you'll notice that this set standard gets a lot more removal, and it's all cheap 2 mana removal. What other things can this card do? I mean, it's pretty simple, but I think it's just a nice sideboard card.
I felt like what was the one from Origins? I know we talked about a lot. That can destroy a target tap.
Swift Reckoning.
Swift Reckoning. Yeah. I feel like this is just like what that card wanted to be. Like I said before, like okay, like this card is playable and it was playable and saw a lot of success in the early weeks of that format. Before you had battle come in. So I feel like this is the fixed card of that. Like not every deck wants this, but like the deck that wants to not play black but be controlling probably definitely wants this.
Yeah, Spellmaster definitely hurt that card.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, the big problem with this card, and I do like the card. I think it's a nice, it's one of those nice like clean removals. Like it's just like destroy an attacking creature, no bells and whistles attached. No drawbacks
or anything that you need.
Yeah, they don't gain life or anything like that. It's just nice and clean. I feel like this is a card that they probably could have printed a long time ago that for some reason they never did.
Yeah, just haven't.
Problem is, Swift Reckoning can kind of sometimes kill a Jace. This one can never kill a Jace.
Yeah.
So I do think it will be a playable card, but it kind of depends on how the format shapes up.
Mm.
At least we don't have to worry about any like Stormbreath Dragons or anything like that. So can kill those types of things.
Cool. Next we have a returning legendary creature, Linvala the Preserver. Linvala got a little bit beefier this time around. She's working out, getting ready for the Eldrazi.
Getting her swole on.
So she costs 4 generic. You guys have broken me and my soul hurts. White. So legendary creature, Angel. She's a 5/5 flyer that has like a weird like timing reinforcements idea attached to her. So if she enters the battlefield and an opponent controls, or an opponent has more life than you gain 5 life. And if enters the battlefield and an opponent controls more creatures than you get a 3/3 Angel creature token that's flying into the battlefield. So it's a 6-drop that like it's sort of built for the idea that hey, if you're playing a big dirtily deck, you might be behind a little bit, and Linvala is trying to like catch you up. We talked about this card a little bit. It has some similarities to like Thragtusk. Similarities. So Keller's eyes just get like real big. But beyond that, I don't know how excited I am for this card. We talked before how you still have like Ojutai as is a finisher in the format, so there might be a time when this card has a chance to shine. I don't know. Design I like though. The design is sweet.
Yeah, I don't think the card is bad. I just don't know if it is good enough. So if you're casting, you could probably pretty reliably cast this and gain 5 life off of it. I don't think that's going to be like a weird scenario at all. But is that even good? Like 6 mana, 5/5 flyer, gain 5? It's okay. I think like really, I mean, if you're getting the 3/3 out of it, that is where you want to be. Like that's awesome. That's 8 power for 6 mana.
What was the board like for you to get that though?
Right, they have to have at least 2 creatures on the board because Linvala herself counts as a creature when it enters.
I don't even know if that's a good enough catch up. Like a lot of creatures are just bigger than a 3/3.
Right. But I mean that is where you want to be, but that scenario seems a little bit harder to sculpt. Now if you're getting both bonuses obviously, then yeah, that's awesome. But
it also depends on where you're at in the game for it to be awesome. Like, great, the 8 power flying is like big game to put into the battlefield, but you have to construct a scenario where it excels, and like to do that makes it a card that I don't know if I want to be trying to cast consistently.
And then we have the other 2 states that you can have this card in at parity or you're ahead, where this card's just terrible.
All right, cool. It's a mana better than Archangel, so we did it, guys. Oh wait, didn't have Vigilance.
Archangel has Vigilance, sir.
So I do want to point out that I'm sad. So I know people were upset you didn't get like the original Invala as a straight reprint, and Iona is also mentioned on an uncommon in this set, but she doesn't show up either. I'm like Iona was like the biggest angel on the plane. Why isn't she trying to smack some Titans around? Like she's a 7/7 compared to a 10/10. She should be out there doing something. I'm just saying she's got a blessing she gives to a character. Like she shouldn't be blessing people. She should be out there with a giant sword.
Yeah,
I'm disappointed in you.
I would have much rather just have the regular Invala with 3/4. At least that shuts off Jace, right? Can't activate it.
Or any of the planeswalkers, right? Oh, I guess Nissa still triggers.
Yeah, Nissa still triggers. So, oh well. Moving on.
All right. Oath of Gideon. So this is the first of the Oath cards that we're going to talk about here, and this one is a legendary enchantment for 2 generic and a white. When Oath of Gideon enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 white core ally creature tokens onto the battlefield. It also has the text, each planeswalker you control enters the battlefield with an additional loyalty counter on it. So 3 mana for 2 1/1 tokens. Not that great. It's not the worst thing ever, but really...
and they are allies, which is important.
They are allies. I don't think allies is going to be constructed playable.
I feel like
this will be sweet in draft. But
yeah, I feel like you're playing this card. This is like one of the only oaths you're really playing for the second ability, not the first ability.
Yeah, well, I do think the first ability is something.
It's
I mean,
it's not
does,
nothing, but it's
right,
not what you're going to play it for.
So if you're playing a deck that is going to be based around planeswalkers, which a lot of these oaths kind of promote that, it does give you the 2 1/1 blockers is nice. Being able to set up defenses for your planeswalkers.
Did you say this is good and limited?
Yeah, why not?
People don't call the Scions exist, and people hate the card. The green version where you get 2 mana accelerators. You're telling me this card's good?
Well, I'm saying like if you're worried about the ally synergies, that's more what I'm talking about.
That's not a deck in limited.
I will be disappointed every single time I open this rare.
I mean, all of the allies in this set, I think, are just limited only. I don't think there are any allies that are constructed worthy.
My biggest hopes for this card are to get it to wheel, and then I'm like, it's kind of playable, and open Gideon pack 3. I'm like, okay.
All right. Anyway, I didn't want to get stuck on that. But
you said it.
Okay, whatever. So, being able to set up those early defenses for your planeswalkers is nice, and then adding an additional loyalty to your interest, when your planeswalkers come into play, is actually something that we haven't really had, I guess. We've had like doubling season and stuff like that, where that they get double the counters, but
you have to go back and look through the planeswalkers' abilities and see like which planeswalkers change the ultimate turn. Like you play a planeswalker, I have 3 turns until I ultimate.
Yeah,
well,
so
now this one, if their plus is more than 1, obviously it doesn't change if it's only 1. But
right, so the one that immediately jumps to mind, obviously, is Gideon, ally of Zendikar, which now you can play it, ultimate it, and just still have it on the board, which is insane. And if you do that, now your 1/1 tokens now become 2/2s immediately. So, I don't know. This is it's a cool card. I don't know if it'll ultimately end up being constructed worthy, but it's definitely something to think about.
I do think, like, along those veins, like, Gideon definitely benefits. I think Sorin benefits while it's still in Standard as well, because Sorin's ultimate is a big, big game. Mm-hmm. So to be another, like, turn closer to that, like, it now comes in at 5, right, and ticks up to 6, so it just gets the ultimate the next turn. And now you have 4 power of lifelink standing in front of it. Like, I think that's really the card that could truly, like, I could see a deck. Like, Gideon would be playing that deck too, because Gideon's just good. But that's the card I'd be terrified to go, I have a turn. Like, I have a turn to deal with this, or I actually might just lose the game. Whereas Gideon's ultimate doesn't always just win the game.
Yeah, Ugin does the same thing. He starts at 8, plus 2's at 10, then you can ultimate right away.
Wow. All right. Well, that's something you just don't want to experience. You're just like, oh, cool. I'm dead. I mean, luckily, most of the time that if someone's casting Ugin against you in Standard, they have to take down to
right.
Clear the board, basically, and then go from there. But, yeah.
Something else I want to point out. The flip planeswalkers also count as entering the battlefield.
Yes.
So, like, if you flip a Jace that doesn't play, it comes into play with 6, and so then you just go minus.
Oh, so it's a genuine Keter Jace.
Jace.
Yes.
He was just ahead of the curve.
So,
already playing this card.
Yeah, that is something that is legit. So,
all right. Next card we have is Wall of Resurgence. 2 generic, 1 white for a creature wall. It's an 0/6 with Defender, obviously. When Wall of Resurgence enters the battlefield, you may put 3 +1/+1 counters on target land. Basically, you awaken 3 on a land. I think, are we talking about this one for Standard, or are we more talking about this one for your cube? I do think it might be possible that this goes into a Standard deck, but I don't know. I don't think so.
I've seen a couple people just playing the beta who have been trying this card, and I Fiery Impulse their land.
Yeah.
And they stop playing the game at parity. They like, okay, you have an 06. I do not care. I would be terrified to play this card against, because you want this against the aggressive decks, so you want to turn it on against their cheap removal. Like, here's one of my lands. I need that to stabilize, but go ahead. Like, I don't see this card doing. People will play it in Standard, and I think they will be wrong to like. I don't like saying it to people like, don't play this in Standard. It is wrong to play it in Standard. That's my strong feeling about it.
I don't think this one's going to be good enough for Standard. However, I will point out that you don't have to awaken the land. It's a May ability. So if you really need your lands to stick around, you can just keep them sleeping.
There's a 0/6 wall for 2 mana in battle.
Yeah, I know. Well, this one at least gives you the option to awaken the land.
I suppose it's true.
Again, I don't think it's good enough. But I'm just saying.
It is good enough for your cube, though, right? Have we come to that conclusion yet?
It's totally not in there already with a proxy version that may or may not.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Considered a counterfeit.
No WPN store is profiting from your cube.
No.
So.
What was it drafted last weekend? I don't remember. Did anybody play it?
It was drafted, but I don't think it was played.
So that's white.
Any further impressions on white? White didn't necessarily get a whole lot, I don't think. But
I think it's important to note that the set's smaller and there's so many like actual colorless cards too that a lot of the colored colors in general don't have a lot here. They just don't. So.
Yeah. A lot of white is based around the allies, which, as I mentioned, which I feel like is just pretty much limited only. Did we ever talk about cohort? The ability?
We did when it first got spoiled, and I think we all kind of agree that the cohort requiring another ally and for you to tap both of them to activate it just sort of takes out of the realm of ever being constructed playable. So, limited, it's going to be sweet, just like I think Outlast was sweet. Like most of the ones have pretty powerful effects, and you'll see that, and they'll play pretty well. I think with the other, like the problem is that like the first set of allies in battle are fairly aggressive the way they're set up. Like you want to chain them into each other, and you want to attack every turn. And these allies want to like play the waiting game a little bit, and we'll see how that meshes. It's a little weird, but I'm not. A cohort seems like a fine limited mechanic, but I just can't see like every time my opponent plays creatures and then decides to tap them for an ability, and as opposed to attacking me or blocking with them or anything else, I'm gonna go. Did I lose the game because no? Okay, good. Thank you. That was a good use of your turn. I'm excited about this.
I mean, at the very least, you can do this at instant speed. You don't. Have to.
Yeah, it's true. It's not a sorcery speed effect.
Yeah,
it's true.
All right, moving on to blue.
All right, is it my card?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have Dimensional Infiltrator, which is a really, really weird card. I want to make sure I have the exact wording of the ability out, but I know it's a flyer that has flash, the 2/1, for a generic and a blue. So 2/1 flash flyers are fine.
Flash Welcome turn.
Yeah, okay, it's fine. It has an activated ability, which is a generic and a colorless. I hate everybody. That's what I'm
sorry.
Hey, you only have to do this for the rest of your life. It's fine.
That says exile the top card of an opponent's library. If it's a
land card, you may return this to your hand.
Yes.
It also has Devoid.
Sorry, I was getting there. I thought it was assumed. I apologize. It's a thing. It's a terrible thing to think it was assumed. But so this card is like a weird. I think what's the card I'm thinking of? Like Linking Spirit. Was that it? The one
from
that's
like Ice Age.
The one. There's Winking Spirit. There's one from like there's Legacy too.
Fleeting Image.
Is that the one that has like blue and a color? It's like to bounce it back to your hand.
Yeah.
That's more what I'm thinking. Okay. It's weird that there's just not like ingest. Obviously, isn't in the set because Kozilek's crew doesn't ingest. Right? They distort. But it does feel like some of these abilities actually play better. Like if you were trying to actually make the ingest deck in Standard, then cards like this are. This is a card I'd want to look at first if I was trying to be aggressive about it over like Mistwriter because like Flash is powerful, like 2/1 instead of a 1/2 is powerful, and that ability can be used over and over again. So even if this card's going to die, you can like spend a turn like exiling 2 cards and setting up your Ulamog's Nullifier or anything else like that. So
yeah, and it doesn't have to attack and get through and deal damage. Like
absolutely.
Would. It definitely helps like cards like a Blight Herder maybe.
For sure.
It seems like it's powerful enough to see Standard play. It's just getting it all to work together.
See, the problem is if you're playing it in those types of decks, you have to. It's like, cool. So I'm playing a 2/1 flyer for 2 mana.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so these types of cards.
1 mana, 1/1 flyers are playable 2 formats ago.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's a whole other thing. You know, we're talking about mono blue devotion.
I know.
I mean, yeah. If that was still a deck now, then yeah, sure, this deck would be, or this card would be playable. But that deck's not around anymore, and there isn't really a deck that exists that this would slot into. So, I in the end, I don't think this is powerful enough. It's kind of a cool card, does some things, but ultimately, I don't think it's doing things that you really want or need.
I think it's worth looking at as just some glue to hold a deck together. It's not the reason you're building this ingest deck, but it certainly goes into one.
Sure.
I just like its flavor. Was it here? I don't know. What was I?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the Matrix Sentinel flavor.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of Kozilek's Brood look like Sentinels from the Matrix, so that's fine. Just get them all altered to look like that, and have Gideon altered to be Neo. You did it. You can take that idea. I don't want to pay money to do it. Someone else can.
All right. So next up, we have Slip Through Space. This is kind of an innocuous card, really. I didn't really look at it the first time I saw the spoiler, but Slip Through Space is a 1 blue mana sorcery with Devoid, and it says target creature can't be blocked this turn. Draw a card. So it's a nice little cantrip. It is a sorcery, which I thought this was an instant at first, but I mean, with the effect, it doesn't really matter, I guess, because you're only going to be casting it on your turn. But I wouldn't, like you said, you've been kind of messing around with some prowess decks.
I've been playing around with some decks to try and see how this card works, and this card is very good. It's 1 mana blue cantrips. We haven't had, like, when's the last time we had a 1 mana blue cantrip in the format? Like, Thought Scour, Quicken, right? I think that's it. So, like, that alone is powerful. Obviously, being a sorcery is different. But it does let, like, I've been playing the prowess deck with, like, Monastery Swiftspear and Abbots and, like Seekers, and, like, being able to, like, make sure that gets through, and then pumping with other prowess spells is great. It lets you chain into your treasure cruises. Like, I think this card's going to be very important. It's seen a lot of play in the beta so far. It allows you to win from board states where it does not look like you can win. Heck, it makes your Wandering Fumaroil, which we've talked about before and we'll get to again, it makes that card unblockable at times, which is like really gross. There's like, oh, well, you're flooding out and you don't have any spells left. Oh, except for here's 4 unblockable and I'm dead. So, unblockable is always powerful, and like chaining it with prowess when there's a ton of prowess in the format and drawing a card. I think this card is well positioned to, any card like this is going to be a role player, but it's a solid one.
Do you think this is like a test? Like, how bad can we make a blue 1 mana cantrip and have it still be playable?
But I don't think unblockable is bad in any way. Like,
well, it only
You're all
goes in
about the
decks
unblockable, man.
It only goes in decks with creatures. Like, you're not going to play it. You would play Thought Scour in like a 28 land Esper control deck.
That's true. It's right.
So,
this being a sorcery, it does cut it from decks like that.
So, like, half the reason you play these 1 mana cantrips is just to play an extra half land in your deck. And for those control decks, they're not going to want this. But
that's fair.
I do think the card is good in those Jeskai Ascendancy decks, if those come back.
Which we may or may not have been testing.
All right, next up we have Void Shatter. Generic blue for an instant. Devoid. Counter target spell. If the spell is countered this way, exile it instead. So, Dissipate again, which has been playable in the past, and will probably be playable again.
It's a colorless Dissipate.
Oh,
So it can't be gainsayed.
Got him.
right.
Can't gainsay you.
We were playing this card for a while until Dissolve was printed, right? Dissolve was just a lot better because of Scry.
Yeah, Dissolve was generally better, but there were situations where Dissipate was better.
But, again, we have Dissipate in the same standard as Innistrad. Like, the last Innistrad block we had to Dissipate. This Innistrad block we're going to quote-unquote Dissipate.
Oh, man, flashback confirmed. I think it's also point, again, this is another void counter, or an exile counter spell, and we just talked about this 4-color rally deck, you know what I mean? Like, So it's not irrelevant there. Like, do you want Scatter because it has upside, or do you want this spell which says like, no, you're not going to flashback your your collected company through Jace, or no, you don't have an Antuko Husk in the graveyard, which is a big deal.
I think this becomes the default over Scatter the Winds. I mean, even like it's not against rally decks, you still get rid of instants that Jace won't be able to flashback. So, yeah.
It is really unfortunate that you can't exile this to Force of Will, but what are you going to do? Can't win them all.
Oh yeah.
You would definitely be playing those
bringing
two.
up all the interactions that matter.
You would definitely be playing those two cards in the same deck.
Oh yeah, for sure. What casual deck are you playing?
You also can't reveal it to what Evermind. Is that a thing?
Yeah. Let's just you do all the research on what this card can't do, involving it not being blue.
Yeah, good against
and get back
Gainsay,
to us.
Good against Gainsay, bad with Force of Will. Just keep that in mind.
Remember that one, guys. If that's the only thing you take from this cast, let it be that. Moving on.
All right, so the next card, which is comparative analysis, which I guess is fine. This is This is inspiration with maybe upside. So it's 3 generic and a blue for an instant. Target player draws 2 cards. It has a surge cost of 2 generic and a blue. So if you've played a spell or your teammate has played a spell this turn, you can cast it for its surge cost, which 3 mana draw 2 as an instant is definitely much more exciting. You know what I mean? But I don't know what you're doing to set this card up. I don't know. This card seems very unexciting to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's possible somebody plays it, but
Oh no, I agree with that. It's possible somebody plays it, but I just don't. It doesn't seem like a.
you can play it in your Jorian deck and draw 3
I
cards.
think the problem is, at least right now
Sure
in
could.
standard, you just have so many better card drawing spells. Like Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time are still legal. Painful Truths is, it's always costs 3 and pretty much always draws you 3 cards instead of 2. But this isn't entirely unplayable. I mean, I could see maybe a situation where this would be okay, but it probably is after Khan's block rotates. Maybe.
Yeah. I think most of us are Lil Dicky fans, who's a rapper. So I just want this to be altered to have apples and oranges on it. That's all I want. So
I don't understand why can't you compare fruit?
why can't you compare fruit? Exactly. All right. Next card.
Next card is Crush of Tentacles. This is a sweet one. So Crush of Tentacles is a sorcery cost 4 generic blue. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. And it has a surge cost of 3 blue. So 3 generic, 2 blue. If you pay the surge cost, you get to return all non-land permanents, and you get an 8/8 blue octopus creature token.
You should be allowed to get 2/4/4 octopus tokens. Just cut them right in half.
Too soon.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, this card is. There have been a lot of these kind of just return all non-land permanent cards in the past that just haven't been very good. But actually getting, returning everything and getting an 8/8 is pretty awesome.
But then you're spending, at best case, you're spending still 6 mana for this. If you had a 1 mana cantrip, but more than likely 7 or 8 mana to get this. So you have to have already survived that long, and then your 8/8 has to stick, and your opponent not just be able. I think there's a lot of what ifs for this for an effect that again hasn't really been playable. Aether's Bounce, right, is the closest to being playable for this, and that's it's not even really that similar of an effect.
I think Whelming Wave was that one was only creatures, right?
It was non-Octopus and Leviathan, and
There was one with an X in it too.
Displacement Wave, right? And mono 5-color mono blue dragons played that card, and it was sweet. But that card's also done nothing.
Yeah.
So
I do have a little bit more optimism on Crush of Tentacles. I think it's nice if you're just going to play in a straight Jeskai deck instead of going black. It kind of gives you, unless you play in hostilities or not in hostilities, kind of just gives you that board reset and it leaves you with the presence. I was doing some beta testing and there were definitely 4 of these cast in a match. Me and my opponent casting them back and forth, just bouncing Octopus. I died when his octopus became unblockable. So.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear. I mean, the card's certainly playable, and the search cost makes it more attractive than some of the options we've had recently. But I just this effect. It's been so long since effect has done anything. Like we had a miracle cost one that would have cost 2 mana, and that card didn't see any play. Devastation Tide. So
Another thing this does, which is kind of interesting, is it will bounce in your oaths. So like if you play Oath of Jace, play this. You get an 8/8, you have an Oath of Jace again to cast next turn.
that's true, and same for Enter the Battlefield effects. Like I know I saw a deck that was trying to set cards like this up with like Elvish Visionary as it's set up. So like you're playing Elvish Visionary, draw a card, then bouncing it, so you get a little bit of value out of it too. Which again, I don't know how like you're watering your deck down, with that to play it, but certainly you're correct. Like if it ends up counting as like a draw 3 or 4 for you, then like you're probably winning that. But I don't know. Maybe I just keep looking at these cards and thinking not upheaval and. I gotta get out of that mindset.
Yeah, they're never going to make that again.
You shut up. They might.
It's just cube only at this point.